All right, all you Yinzers, welcome to another episode of the Mad Chad and Eddie Show. As always, I'm your host, Eddie Provident. With me is Brian Boyle and Danton Heinen's new agent, Mad Chad Nolan. Mad Chad, both of your guys got goals tonight, man. It's lucrative. It's a lucrative business for you.
Hey, what did I say last week? I said I don't care if I'm right or wrong about a player if I think they're going to be bad for the team because I win either way.
Outside of the Penguins organization, was anybody right about Brian Boyle though? Because I know, I mean, I didn't say anything, but I know what my thoughts were. I mean, I could sit here and
even some of the media that covered him at camp said that, like, yeah, they don't see it. But and to be fair, like one of my favorite Twitter followers, Jason JAS on Twitter, tweeted out. He said, "Remember, good for Brian Boyle, but like Mark Jankowski last year had like this crazy first 3 games, and then we never heard from him again. So, he had a mini breakaway, he scored great. In hockey, as we get into our hockey conversation, I always preface by saying I always wait about 20 games to judge people, and I look at their analytics and see what they're doing. And one game
exactly. We can get into this later, but he did look slow tonight. So, I mean, like, hey, he scored a goal. That's good. That's what you're supposed to do. I mean, that's always the ideal thing. But, we can get into more of what we saw player to player and all that as we get on with this. Couple of housekeeping notes. We were supposed to have Danny on. Danny Shirey just joined the DK Pittsburgh Sports team. Shout out to him for getting that, getting a analyst position with us, covering the Penguins. He does awesome work, and I'm so excited to have him a part of the team and the family here. But he is feeling a little under the weather. Messaged me and said he wasn't able to make it onto the show, so we will get him on. We've had him on before. We definitely will have him on for Penguins Talk. It just won't, unfortunately, be tonight because of some health issues for Danny. Nothing major, but just going through it right now. So, thoughts and prayers to Danny. But Chad, the last 2 weeks of our show and honestly, every sports talk show in Pittsburgh, the last 2 weeks have been, have been vomit inducing and have been like borderline pushing people to drink because of how depressing and how frustrating they were. And, we're going to get into the Steelers later on in the show in the third segment, but the Steelers pull off a win against, against Denver. So, we get the Steelers back in the W column, and then, we get the Penguins tonight as the first game, NHL game back on ESPN in 18 years since the Calgary Flames, Tampa Bay Lightning Stanley Cup. And, they're going up against the back-to-back defending champs in the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're without Sidney Crosby, they're without Evgeny Malkin, they're without Jake Gensel, they're without Zach Aston-Reese. Found out today without Mike Matheson, and you really didn't expect much because all of these guys out, man. Like that's a big chunk of your core not in the lineup. And I'll be honest, dude, the Penguins came out looking like world beaters. This is a 100% a testament to Mike Sullivan and how he prepared this team to play. You could talk all you want about about Tampa being flat, and I'm sure there's some truth to that. But, dude, the Penguins came ready tonight, man, and they looked like they did in the regular season last season.
I mean, we've seen that as Pens fans, banner night, or someone comes back from an injury and everybody's excited and celebrating, and then
they completely
we've been on that side. It happens in hockey more than other sports.
It does.
I think
It really does.
Jesse Marshall from The Athletic, who we hope to have on sooner than later again, always has this thing where he says you can tell how the Penguins are going to play and perform in the first couple minutes just by looking at their forecheck, like the forecheck meter. And tonight, everybody on all 4 lines bought in to, getting the forecheck established and playing defensive responsible hockey. And Mike Sullivan, I know he lost the playoff series, blah. I get it. Listen, at what point are we just going to stop doubting Mike Sullivan? Because even when key guys go out, he always finds a way, and his structure works. And he has adjusted his coaching style. This team is people might hate it, but it's a defensive first team. They're built on forechecking and keeping teams to perimeter, which they did for most of the game. I mean, Tampa, they're so good. Eventually, they were going to get some scoring chances and stuff like that. The first 20 minutes of this game, they did not have a shot on goal that was inside of the slot. That's crazy considering who they have on their roster. And it's just great. Like it just shows you that this team, if they buy into Sullivan's, and they have the players to do it. Zach Aston-Reese, good Lord, they were so good defensively. He's the best defensive forward on the team. So you add him back into the lineup, they're going to be able to clamp teams down, and it's just going to come to, can they get the goals on a consistent basis?
Yeah, and another thing with this is, we're late in Sidney Crosby's career. We're seeing that he plays a 200-foot game as well. He's not just the offensive juggernaut that he was coming in, when he came into the league as Sid the Kid. He's now playing a more refined, more defensive style of hockey game while still keeping up the offensive numbers to a degree. He's still a point per game guy, above a point per game guy, but he plays sound defensive hockey. So yeah, you're right, man. Getting Zach Aston-Reese back, getting Sidney Crosby back, they're going to be an even better defensive team. And then when you get Jake Gensel back, that provides some offense. And I'll also say, look, for all of his warts, Mike Matheson does generate a lot of offense with his skating. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he does a lot of stupid stuff and he makes a lot of dumb mistakes. But he does drive a lot of offense because of his skating ability and his vision. So yeah, they are, and we haven't even breached Evgeny Malkin yet. So this is a very, very good sign of things to come, I think. And again, it's one hockey game. It's funny with the Steelers and Penguins right now. The Steelers get this big win, and you have to kind of like temper it with, look, it's one game. Yep. It was the right blueprint, but it was one game. You could say the exact same thing for the Penguins right now. It was one game. It's the exact blueprint that they need, especially while they're missing all of these guys from the lineup. Yeah. But it still is one game, but it was an exciting one game. And dude, it was just nice to see hockey back. And, before we really dig in, because the second segment, we'll really dig into the nuts and bolts of what happened tonight. But before we do that, I do want to say one more thing. If there is any, and I think you did want to talk about Tristan Jarry, so we'll use this as the segue. If there's any chance of a bounce back season for Tristan Jarry, this is how the bounce back season for Tristan Jarry happens. Because you need to build his confidence early in the season. You need to give him games where he feels like he's in control. And for 40 minutes of hockey, really 50 minutes of hockey, the Penguins insulated him about as good as you can insulate a goalie. Yeah. The couple of times that he did need to make saves, like on the power play, and there was a couple of scrums in front, and there's a couple of shots that got through, he made them. The first goal that they scored, that Tampa scored, was just an incredible deflection. He had one of his Dumoulin got pushed into him. I mean, there's not much.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad goal. No, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, there's not much you can ask Tristan Jarry to do in that situation. But this is exactly what the Penguins needed to do, not only to win games, but to build up Tristan Jarry's confidence. And I think that, if anything, if there's anything more important than that, I don't know what it is. Because in order for this team to be a playoff team, in order for this team to be back at the top of the division and to compete with the Washingtons of the world and, the Islanders and the Carolina Hurricanes, they're absolutely going to need Tristan Jarry to be a very good goalie, not an average goalie. They're going to need one of DeSmith or Tristan Jarry to step up. And this is a really good way to get Tristan Jarry in that headspace, giving him the defense around him to where he feels like he can be in control of a hockey game.
Yeah, and before we go to break, I mean, that was one thing that I was looking for coming into the night, because I do believe Tristan Jarry holds a lot of cards as far as how far the Penguins how well they'll do in the regular season and how far they'll go if they make the playoffs, or if they even make the playoffs. And to no fault of his own, because Matt Murray didn't work out, they kind of put all the eggs in his basket. And I'm pessimistic when it comes to Tristan Jarry. I've made that known. I think if Casey DeSmith had been healthy last year, I think you would have seen him in that playoff series, and I think maybe he would have been better because I thought he played better than Jari last year. Jari was not good last year. I think that's not me hating on him. I think that's an objective thing. He was 28th in goals saved above average. He was not very good.
His save percentage was a 909.
909. That's below average. You want your guy around 914.
I think it was an 888 in the playoffs too, which is unacceptable. That's not winning.
So Tristan Jarry, it holds a lot of cards. And the first thing I was looking at tonight is, okay, what's going to happen? Because goaltending, and it's so hard to analyze because a lot of it is mental, more so than physical, is what's going to happen. I'm sure Tristan Jarry knows he screwed up big time in the playoffs and pretty much cost them the series in a game. What's going to happen the first time a puck flutters to him or the first time he handles a puck. Mm-hmm. And he looked confident tonight. I have to hand it to him. I'm objective. I want him to succeed. I still have my doubts, and I'm still going to have my doubts throughout the season. But it was encouraging for one game, especially in that environment against that team, which is one of the most skilled teams in the league. He stood the test tonight, and that's a great sign.
Yep. So let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get more into the Penguins' win against the Tampa Bay Lightning last night. We will, after that, we definitely do want to talk about some Steelers football. But look, man, this is hockey talk. We say this all the time. Hockey talk is Chad and I's thing, and we finally get real hockey to talk about. So the second segment is still going to be all Penguins. This is the Mad Chad and Eddie Show on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. We will be right back after this break. All right, welcome back to the Mad Chad and Eddie Show on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Eddie Provident. With me is my co-host, as always, Mad Chad Nolan. We are living high right now because the Steelers won this week, the Penguins won this week, and we are talking about real, actual regular season hockey in which the Penguins beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 6-3 on opening night. A lot of things to build off of for the Penguins, a lot of things to be excited about. Two players in particular that we want to talk about tonight are Marcus Patterson and Dominic Simone. Let's start off with Patterson.
Yeah.
You were really excited about him. What'd you see from Patterson, Chad?
I see what I saw the tail end of last season, and he seems to be a little more confident defender. And I don't really understand the hate with either of these two players, but especially Patterson, because I've been a blogger, podcaster, whatever you want to call me, for about a decade now. And that whole time I did that, it was all the offensive defensemen the Penguins had, Letang, Paul Martin, Gonchar, all got so much hate because they didn't play defense first. That's all I heard. Well, here's a guy, Marcus Patterson, who is literally a defensive defenseman.
Right.
But he's not one of these guys, like he's competent getting the puck out of the zone. He's not great, but he's competent in moving the puck. He puts the puck on net. He's not a black hole offensively, but he does, his game is made up of focusing on defense, and he's fairly good at it. And so my mind just cannot figure out where this hatred comes from. Is it because he's not Brooks Orpik and he doesn't just smash people all game? I don't know what this is the actual kind of player that the Yinzers should be liking, and they don't. I'm so just mind boggled.
I think it's exactly what you said. He's a defensive defenseman that isn't physical.
Okay,
he's a defensive defenseman that plays defense from the neck up,
and it's mostly with his stick work is like, and I guess fans just don't find that sexy.
And we'll look at the defensive defensemen that have been like fan favorites in Pittsburgh, like Brooks Orpik,
smash,
Ulf Samuelsson,
smash,
right, Darius Kasparaitis,
kill.
Okay, so these are guys that have been fan favorites in Pittsburgh because they are the smash and bash kind of guys. And there's a time and a place for that, for sure. You need those kind of guys. I think they're slowly dying out in this NHL with the speed and everything that's happening, or that the game's moving to. But there's a time and a place for that. The thing about Marcus Patterson is he plays a game that doesn't that I don't ever think will die in the NHL. And I'm not saying that he's the best defenseman on the ice. I'm not saying he's the best defenseman on the Penguins.
He's not.
No, what I'm saying is the type of game that he plays, the way he approaches hockey, he's looking to take your angle away.
Mhm.
He's using his stick to take the puck away.
Gap control.
He's gonna gap control. He's gonna play the body. He's not gonna stare at the puck.
Some yinzer in a bar is like, what is gap control in hockey?
Right. It's not, like you said, Chad, it's not the sexy style of hockey.
Yeah.
But it's an effective style of hockey. And with him being a longer guy, I think he's about 6'4",
he's big.
And he's very wiry. That's the kind of game that is going to. I don't know that it will ever, unless you have the offensive game to go with it, because I would say that a guy like and this is going to get taken out of context because I'm not comparing him to Nick Lindstrom. But
well, they're both Swedish.
But Nick Lindstrom on the defensive side of the ice played like that. He wasn't a physical guy.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick
now
he's the greatest. But.
He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't. Patterson obviously doesn't have the offensive side to go with the defensive side. He's not a black hole offensively, but he's not. He's not a top tier offensive defenseman. But that defensive style. My point is that defensive style of hockey will keep you in the NHL. That defensive style of hockey, that if you don't have the offensive side to go with it, will keep you as a second or third pair defenseman in the NHL, because teams always need guys that can play solid defense. And here's the key, especially with Mike Sullivan, that the coach can trust. Because Juuso Riikola plays the same style of hockey, but he's more sporadic, and I don't think Mike Sullivan trusts him as much.
I think he did something to Mike Sullivan a long time ago. But
my point being, Marcus Patterson is a guy that Mike Sullivan knows that he can trust to play that 15 to 22 minutes a game, play them well, maybe occasionally play a little more, but then not make the major mistake that's going to bury the team.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what we saw from Marcus Patterson tonight. And that is what you're going to expect to see from Marcus Patterson throughout the season, which is why I'm glad they didn't trade him, because the only other guy that I could see right now that would fill that gap in the system is POJ, and they're on the same. Yeah, they play the same side, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that would be the only guy. And I do want to see POJ get into the lineup, but I'm glad that they didn't trade Marcus Patterson and they didn't they didn't make a move, or that he didn't get picked up by the Kraken. As much as I didn't want to see Tanev go, Patterson's a guy that I think we're going to see, especially while the Penguins are going through this injury spell. Patterson's a guy that they're going to see I think we're going to see them rely on more than they normally would.
Yeah, and just the last touch on him, and then we'll segue into another guy that is hated on for what I would consider similar reasons. With Patterson, I think I'm not trying to gatekeep, because I'm not that guy. I don't, I was a fan of hockey before you were. The more people that watch hockey, the better it is for us, especially here in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So the thing about Patterson, I really do think this falls into this is, you get a lot of Steelers fans and football fans. Well, the Penguins are on, especially if the Penguins are doing well. These people are not hockey first fans. They're not going to sit there and look at analytics and discuss gap control and shit like that. So they're casuals, and there's nothing wrong with being a casual. But a casual hockey fan is just going to find nothing exciting about what Marcus Patterson does. Therefore, it's like, I hate Patterson because he doesn't fight and he doesn't hit and he doesn't score goals. So what the hell does he do? Because they're not seeing what he does.
They're not used to watching the game that way yet. They're not. Yeah.
And you hear the term tough to play against, and people think that means you're tough, as in you're tough physically to play against. But Patterson is tough to play against because he'll frustrate you, because he's not going to fight you. He's not, he probably would throw hands. He's 6'4", but he's not going to smash you all the time. What he's going to do with his 6'4" super long hockey stick is get it inside of your stick and frustrate the hell out of you as you try to deep pass him, and he shuts you down. And that's what modern defensemen are being asked to do, especially nowadays with the McDavids and Matthews, is take up space with your stick. And that's what he's good at. And that's what you want modern defensive defensemen to be. So just learn how the game is growing. And you'll I think if you learn how the game is growing, follow the Jesse Marshalls and all these guys, I think you'll come to appreciate a Marcus Patterson just a tad bit more.
And so, you've got Marcus Patterson on the defensive side of the ice, and then on the offensive side of the ice, another fan favorite.
Oh yeah, what's Dominic Simone?
Another fan favorite, Dominic Simone, man, gets a goal tonight.
Also had a breakaway.
Had a couple of opportunities to score, and I'll tell you what, man, generated some offense, he was getting to space very, very well. He was doing all of the things that they want Dominic Simone to do. He set up, I think we lost your mic there or your camera there, Chad. Did everything that Dominic Simone is supposed to do, and he scored. And so for me, this is the kind of thing that we want to see from Dominic Simone all season. If the goals come with it, that's a bonus. But this is the kind of Dominic Simone game that we want. Getting opportunities for his line mates, generating offense, driving play. Like he looked exactly like what we needed Dominic Simone to be.
No, and my theory on Simone is very similar to the theory of why fans don't like Patterson. It's because, Dominic Simone is a role player, and it's not his fault, by the way. Dom Simone wasn't like, I'm playing on the first line. That you can blame that on Mike Sullivan. But let's take away he didn't play on the first line last night, and so far it doesn't look like he's not playing on the first line at all, unless Gensel and Russ both get injured. Then I would say he probably puts him up there because of his chemistry with Sid. But Simone is it's not an opinion. This is not an opinion. He is objectively a decent NHL player, meaning that he does not hurt your team. And the stats, every bit of analytic data, and I know they don't care about the analytics. I know you don't because it shows you're wrong. He makes the Penguins better. He plays a defensive first approach. He forechecks. And by the way, he's a hell of a passer. He can pass the hell out of that puck. He sets guys up all the time. And that's why Crosby and Gensel like playing with him. I know he can't score goals and it's frustrating, but he makes $800K. He's a role player. He's not expected to score 20 goals. Kapanen, Zucker, those guys are expected to be scoring all the goals, not poor Dominic Simone. He's just supposed to be a role player and pitch in. And he does. He does every little thing. He goes and chases the puck. He retrieves the puck. He back checks. He forechecks. He plays good defense. He does every little thing that you would want a hockey player to do, a forward to do on a checklist. He would check all of them off. But guess what? He doesn't score all the time. He doesn't fight, and he doesn't hit people all the time. Therefore, by the casuals, he sucks. It's the same damn thing.
It's always going to be that. It's all it's the guys that don't score that do the dirty work, or not even the dirty work, but just the unseen work. They never get the love that they I think should get. And let me give you, speaking of his about his inability to score goals. 2018, 2019, he had a 6.6 save shooting percentage. Okay. 2019, 2020, same. It was 6.9. Nice. Yeah. With Calgary last year in 11 games, he didn't score at all. So obviously 0% on 4 shots. Before that, his highest shooting percentage was 11%, which was decent. But the average in the NHL, I believe, is 9. I think, or
9.5 or 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's my point with that. Eventually, and we talk about statistics, we talk about analytics. In a term that you're going to hear is, either regression to the mean or progression to the mean. All right. What that tells me about Dom Simone is he probably is not getting the puck luck that you would like to see a guy get, right? He's having bad puck luck. I'd like to see his personal PDO, to see how that plays out. But point with this, Dom Simone is probably going to progress to the mean when it comes to shooting percentage. He's probably going to bump that percentage up to 9% or 10% at some point in time, hopefully this year. So what does that translate to? That takes an 8-goal guy on the fourth line to a 9 or 10 or to a 10 or 11 goal guy on the fourth line.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that may not seem a lot to you, but if every one of your fourth liners scores 3 more goals, right? 2 or 3 more goals in a season, those goals start to add up in big games, in close situations, tight situations, overtime games. These goals start to add up. Those scoring chances eventually start to add up. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see Dominic Simone's scoring or shooting percentage go up a little bit, and then by default, instead of him being a single-digit goal guy, maybe he cracks double digits. And you know what? As a fourth liner, if you're going to give me 10 to 12 goals in a season on the fourth line, I'm taking that. Especially if you play the way Dom Simone plays.
Yeah.
I'll take that all day, every day.
I just can't stop to think that if he was a fighter or if he was a hitter like Tanev, you would never hear anything about his goal scoring, because I remember fans used to love guys like Craig Adams and stuff like that. And when the hell did they score? Where was all these goals they score? They didn't score all these goals like that. To me, and here's the thing. You don't have to be the goal scorer. Simone is actually really good at setting other guys up to score. You have to have a guy like that. Not everybody scores. When Kapanen is shooting 6% like Dom Simone, that's who you should be mad at. If Zucker is shooting 6% like Dom Simone, then you should be mad at that. Exactly. Same with Gunsel and Russ. Those are the guys that are expected to score goals. And by the way, here's another guy that he was out tonight that is underrated by this fan base is Zach Aston-Reese, and I can't wait for him to come back because, again, everything we said about Dom Simone, we can say double for Zach Aston-Reese because he is better. He's the best defensive forward on the team. And I see him get hated a lot because, again, he's not going to score all these goals. I'm just trying to figure out when the expectations of fourth liners began for them to score all these goals, unless they're fighters. If they're fighters, then it doesn't matter. If they fight people, that's okay. But if they don't fight people, then you have to score goals. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an old way of thinking about hockey.
Yeah.
And to real quick, 9.46 is the average shooting percentage in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Dom Simone in those 2 seasons that he had the 6.6 and the 6.9 shot 102 shots and 121 shots.
Okay.
So if you bump that percentage up, the 3% to get him to average, 2.5% to get him to average, those 2 seasons he would have had he would have gone from 8 goals and 7 goals to 13 goals and 12 goals.
Right.
So there you go. Like that's exactly like that. That's and that to me that math checks out. You want to get a very good fourth line is made up of guys that are going to get you 10 to 12, 10 to 15 goals a season.
Right now he was on with the line with Bluger and McGinn, which they played great tonight. And man, I like Brock McGinn's game as well. He's everything everybody said he was, very defensive responsible, and boy does he skate hard. But now you take Zach Aston-Reese, he comes back in the lineup, and you bump Simone down to the fourth line in place of Sam Lafferty, and you put Aston-Reese, Bluger, and McGinn for the third line. I'm telling you, that's a line that's going to – if I'm the other team, I'm not having much fun playing against that line at all.
No. But, yeah, man, so, hey, I'm excited by what I saw from the Penguins tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
It's, like I said, it's a building block.
And you can't count Mike Sullivan out. You can't.
No. It's building blocks. They showed a path for them to be a good hockey team. We saw. I really wasn't disappointed with anybody on the roster.
No, neither was I.
The whole team played well tonight. So, look, man, I'm excited about it. But again, trying to temper that with it's just one game. I think my excitement is more hockey is back.
Yeah, hockey's back. So, and again, if this team just treads water until they get their big guns back, that's all you can really ask for. And it just shows, again, how good of a coach Mike Sullivan is. All the hot takes. This guy understands what it takes to win it, and it's up to the players to buy into the way that he knows they have to play. You can't play run and gun with the lineup that they had tonight. No. And everybody bought in, and it was a brilliant game plan by Sullivan. I think Tampa Bay was probably kind of caught off guard by it.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, as much as I love talking hockey, as much as we enjoyed this Penguins win, the Steelers won too. And the Steelers won in pretty convincing fashion.
Good week
actually.
for the Yinzers.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit of Steelers football when we come back from the break. This is the Mad Chad and Eddie Show on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. We'll be right back after this. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Mad Chad and Eddie Show for the Steelers talk section of the show, the third and final segment. Not only did the Penguins win, Chad, but we've got a football winner this week, too. The Steelers get off of the schneid. They get back in the win column. And I'll tell you what, man, they did it pretty impressively. Like, they looked the part. I mean, on offense, we finally saw some things that we wanted to see from this team. And we finally got to see an offensive line getting some push. We finally got to see a running game and a good running game. And I know you want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Ben did not look washed. Imagine that. You have a 39-year-old quarterback, and you only have him throw the ball 25 times instead of 45 times, and he doesn't look washed. Imagine that.
That throw to Claypool for the touchdown, to me, is the best throw he's made all year. That was a dart.
Yeah, I mean, everything about it was just a good, solid game. The defense did the bend but don't break thing. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more.
Yeah,
I would have liked to have seen a little more from them. But you know what? I think James Pierre encapsulates that defense perfectly in that game.
Well, I'll tell you what else I like is Arthur Millette. I'm starting to really like Arthur Millette a lot too.
Well, my point with James Pierre being like not a great game.
No, he got picked on a lot.
Yeah, he had some issues, but when it counted, he stepped up and made a big play. And I was happy overall, man. I really was happy with what I seen from this football team.
Yeah, and I don't discount, Denver's not that good. They didn't beat anybody. But look what the Ravens struggled against the Colts last night. And honestly, if the Colts secondary wasn't dead, they probably could have won that game. Or if their kicker doesn't miss a field goal, they probably would win a game. This is the NFL. Doesn't matter who you play every single week. These are NFL teams. And the NFL is the system is built for teams to try to keep it as close as possible. You rarely see big-time blowouts in the NFL. This isn't college. This is the NFL. So, you're playing against Von Miller and guys like that. Like, this is not a scrub football team. But I'm glad you brought up the running game because for the longest time with Ben here and the league changing to a passing team, I was definitely like, we needed to build a team around Ben, blah, 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 blah. But now you have an old veteran quarterback who's probably playing his last year. He's 39 years old. And then eventually I'm assuming they're going to have a younger guy, although I don't know because there's rumors that Tomlin wants a veteran. But either way, Najee Harris, I believe, is changing the culture both philosophically on the field as terms of what they do. I think they can be either a balanced or a run first team, which again, if they can do that on what they did Sunday, if they can do that again against a bad Seattle defense this week, you're probably going to have similar results. And it's going to take so much needed pressure off of any quarterback, let alone a 39-year-old quarterback. But also, I commented on DK's video that he got where he was interviewing Najee after the game, and I was just so impressed by the way Najee carries himself compared to other NFL players or other athletes in general, especially for how young he is. He's only 21, I believe, or 22.
He's a young kid. Yeah, he's young.
He's mature. Like, dude, he's more mature than me at my age. And the way he plays the football, you can see that he cares and he wants to win and he wants everyone to be better, including himself, his ability to be coached. I definitely don't think Tomlin will ever have a problem with giving him constructive criticism and him, throwing a tantrum or throwing gummy dicks at people. I don't think that would ever happen. And but I as much as people didn't want to take a running back in the first round, and I even said going back, I would have probably taken a tackle or a corner. Najee Harris, the person, is not only to me going to help change this team on the field in a good way, but I think as he grows, there's a chance that he might be able to bring that locker room back to maybe a more grounded, humble, hardworking locker room as opposed to the flashy locker room that they've had in the past.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And the thing that everything that you just said about Najee Harris, I echo. I don't even know if I have anything to add to it.
Well, you saw him at camp, so I mean, did you pick up any of that up?
He just kind of he kind of comes off as like the happy-go-lucky kid.
I'm
like,
just happy to be here.
Yeah, he's happy to be there. He doesn't like. There's no fuss around him. You know, there's no air of like I'm supposed to be here. Like he's a guy that I look at and I see him truly enjoying the moment.
Well, think about this. Think about this. Like this is new to him because he hasn't lost many games,
right?
And like all of a sudden he comes to Steelers. He's a starting running back, and he has an old quarterback. I'm sure he respects Ben because Ben's a future Hall of Famer. But again, he's throwing interceptions and losing games, and the offense is struggling. And the offensive line for the first couple of weeks was getting thrown under the bus, and it would have been very easy for him to start to get very frustrated. Mm-hmm. But what I'm hearing, I think Dale Lawley said that Najee was attending the meetings in the offensive line meetings, and like that, he's a rookie dude. Like that's crazy. Like this dude's going to be the captain of the team in a couple of years.
Yeah, he's look. I said this when I said that they should have drafted an offensive lineman. Mm-hmm. He's everything that you want in the face of a franchise.
And he's everything he's advertised as well.
Yeah. He actually, did you know this, Chad? He leads all rookies in receptions.
I know that. And then also
26 receptions. And now I believe he's either second or first in rookie rushing.
I will say, and this is what I was waiting for the show to add because I was going to tweet this, but I was like, no, it's better for the show. I am worried that because the running backs, I mean, it's a goddamn major cliff drop from the talent of Najee to Snell and Balaj and all those guys. Mm-hmm. I'm worried that they're just going to run them into the ground.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance for that. I don't disagree with you.
Especially a rookie, like, oh, man.
But I don't know, man. Like, he's built to take it. I mean, he like physically.
He better be.
He's physically built to take it. I mean, he's 6'2", 240 pounds.
Yeah.
5% body fat. The dude's in impeccable shape. I mean, like
you're making me feel bad.
Yeah, dude, tell me about it, man. Tell me about it. But yeah, man, like he's really everything that you could possibly want in a rookie football player in a face of a franchise, and I think he does have a bright future. Like I said, I still am on record, and I don't know that I'm off of this yet. I still think an offensive lineman and a tackle specifically would have been the way to go, but you know. That's why I'm sitting here in my basement doing this podcast, and Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin are running the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I don't know. You know, it's one of those things where you know I don't think they would have been wrong either way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think they figured out the formula this last game, though. I mean, Ben, listen, even if Ben wasn't 39, he shouldn't be throwing the ball anywhere near 50 times a game.
No, we've established you can't do that. Yeah, you can't. Like
even the Packers.
We had this conversation. Yeah. We had this conversation 3 or 4 years ago as a city, as a fan base, that Ben can't be throwing 50 times a game. And so if it was happening 3 or 4 years ago, what makes you think it's going to work now? It's when he's 39 and he's slower and he's not as athletically, as Tomlin has very clearly stated in his last 2 press conferences. He's not mobile anymore. He's not, you know, he's not the same old Ben Roethlisberger. You can't expect same old Ben Roethlisberger stuff. And I do want to say one more thing. I don't want it to sound like I'm picking on Najee by saying that they should have drafted an offensive lineman. I just think my football mentality, my theory on football is that you build from the offensive line out.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, it's not like they made a bad pick with Najee, and I am super.
And I'm not sure I want to see that offense without Najee.
Yeah. I love the kid. I think he's a bright talent. He's such a like him and James Pierre are the kind of guys that you want to see them succeed,
and you want to play with them too. Like
energy. like I've watched a couple of interviews from James Pierre, and I got, I was around him. Not that I talked to him or anything, because I couldn't interact with the players, but you get to see how they interact with each other. You get to see how they interact with the media.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get a better respect for who they are as people rather than just athletes. And so there was that side of it, and then the piece that Tom Reed wrote on James Pierre a couple months ago, during training camp, really gave you a great look into his backstory and his home life growing up, why this matters so much to him. If you get a chance to go on our site, on the DK Pittsburgh Sports website, check out Tom Reed's piece on James Pierre. It's under the Steelers special features. It's such a good write up. And it gave me an appreciation for James Pierre. And the thing why I'm bringing him up with Najee is because they both are so genuine and so real in their press conferences. Like when James Pierre was asked about that last play of the game, the interception, somebody asked him if he knew that they were going to come after him, or like, if he was ready for that. And he said, "Oh, of course they did. I got burned on the last one. I got beat." So he knew they were like, and he doesn't mince words about it. He doesn't. And Najee's the same way. If Najee doesn't like something, he's not going to throw anyone under the bus. He's really good at taking it on himself, but he's really like, he's waterproof. It just rolls right off of him. Like I've heard a few times where certain reporters, and I'm not going to name names on the show, but certain reporters have tried to catch Najee and put him in a situation where he would throw Ben under the bus, or throw Matt Canada under the bus, or the offensive line under the bus. And he's never taken the bait. And that is so impressive from a young kid, man.
I know we're going to go, but that also shows the differences of playing, because when we see the game so much differently than they do. Najee, for one thing, you can't, like, James Pierre can't say, well, our quarterback needs to stop throwing interceptions, because again, I remember we asked Trey Essex that about, like, do you get discouraged if the offense is out there turning the ball, and he's like, or if the defense is out there and they're not making a stop and stuff like that. It's like, no, I'm worried about what I do, because guess what? When they go this week, even though they won, when they go this week and they go into their team game review and they watch the film, even though they won and mostly played well, the coach is going to go, nope, you messed up on this play, and you messed up on this play, and here's a play, Najee, where the hole was there for some reason, you went this way, and so, but it is a refreshing thing. And by the way, when I said that to DK on Twitter, some a-hole tried to bait me and was like, why would it be odd that Najee?
Yeah.
And you know what he was trying to say. And I was like, dude, I'm telling you that as just a young person, because people my age don't carry themselves that well. So get out of here with that nonsense. But yeah, in the end, I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, but man, I think Najee is a sign of change to come. And I think this is the guy that you build the offense around.
And I think for, to wrap this up and bring it back to the game, this is such a recipe for the Steelers to build off of. Like, you get the offense. Like, I want to give, like, I know that, everybody's been talking about it, but Chuks Okorafor shut down Von Miller.
Yeah.
Single hand. Yeah. I mean, like, he got some help, with chips and stuff like that, but he shut down Von Miller. And, the offensive line looked like they were above average.
And
like,
look at the results.
Yeah. And so this is, if the Steelers are going to make a run, if to use a Tomlin phrase, if they're going to stack wins, this is the blueprint. This is the blueprint that everybody has been talking about. This is why I wasn't ready to say that Ben is washed. This is why I wasn't ready to say that the season was over. This is why I wasn't ready to say that this team sucks, because at the end of the day, all they had to do was get blocking from the offensive line. Now, the offensive line in those first three, or in the weeks 2, 3, and 4, 2 and 3 mostly, but 4 to a degree, they were terrible. They could not. I don't know that they could have,
especially against the Raiders and the Bengals.
Yeah, I don't know that they could have been worse.
Yeah,
but to their credit, they turned it around. They did what they needed to do against a good defense in Denver. Now they have a bad defense coming into Pittsburgh, in Seattle.
They're on pace to be the worst defense in modern football.
So now they have a chance to get back to 3-3 before the bye week, or going into the bye week, and not only stack wins, Chad, but stack wins where the offensive line imposes their will on the other team.
Yeah, Chicago and Cleveland are going to give them problems because they're especially Cleveland. I don't expect them to beat Cleveland in Cleveland. Their front seven's so good.
Yeah, but
they can go 3-1 in the next 4 games, realistically.
Here's my point with that. If they do beat Seattle and they have another situation where Najee runs for 120, 130 yards and the offensive line keeps Ben relatively clean and they impose their will again, okay?
Now down the field's open for business.
Right. Other defenses on film are going to have to respect that. So that's going to open up the middle of the field that we've been talking about all season and parts of last season. And it's going to give guys like Kendrick Green and Dan Moore, if Dan Moore is still on the field, depending on what happens with Zach Banner, it's going to give these young guys and Kevin Dotson, because he's a second-year guy, it's going to give them confidence, Chad. It's going to show them that, hey, we can be the guys that do the bullying. We can be the guys that push the other team around. And so if that happens and these guys start to build some confidence on top of stacking wins with Najee behind them, and all Ben has to do is what we've talked about all season is just manage the game.
Yep.
Now you've got a recipe on offense where they're going to score 20 to 26, 27 points a game. And now the defense doesn't have to be an elite defense every single week. The defense can be, could have an off week and still pull off a win because the offense is doing what they're supposed to do. They're pulling their own weight.
Absolutely agree. And the last thing I'll do before we wrap up here is to keep the optimism going. Listen, I feel for Juju. Yeah. It's sad.
Heartbreaking, man. Such a likable, lovable dude.
But every man's demise is another man's blessing. And this is
exactly what Tomlin said, how he put it today, man. Yep.
Look for Chase Claypool now to have an extended route tree. And as a Notre Dame fan who watched him play at Notre Dame, I can tell you, despite the fact that he's 6'4", and I know the offensive coordinator and Tomlin and Ben get all excited, let's send the big man down the field and throw jump balls. I'm telling you, his game is eating in little in routes, little slants, and get the ball in his hand. I'm telling you, the Chase Claypool stats are about to go this way.
And I'm going to give you another name. I'll give you another name to look out for because, again, being at training camp, I watched how involved he was. Is Cody White.
Yeah, and he's decent out there.
He's raw for sure.
And they just signed Anthony Brown too.
Yeah, he's a big body though. Anthony Miller. Yeah. But no, Cody White's a decently big body that I think he's not going to be anybody. He doesn't jump off the page athletically. You know what I mean?
Not like Claypool does.
No, but he's just he's a solid route runner. He's got decent hands and he just does all the little things and he's a hard worker. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him become that fourth wide receiver and so that they could keep Ray McLeod as the return guy.
Also,
I wouldn't be shocked to see that.
It's going to be interesting with Ben because sometimes Ben uses Juju in the short intermediate stuff almost to a fault where he has other guys down the field and he just wants
he'll still just drop it to Juju.
Again, as far as looking at blessings, again, not taking any away from Juju, but I'm wondering now if Ben is going to force himself, maybe Freiermuth is another guy that get him involved more and let him. Dude, I'm dying for some tight end screens to Freiermuth and just see him run over people.
Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah, with it. So there's this is the most optimistic I've felt since preseason.
And I don't want to be one of those guys that one game.
Yeah, and then next week we're we were wrong.
But legitimately, I was concerned about the team.
Yeah,
but I wasn't hitting the panic button yet. And you can look at the Steelers Today videos that I did with Dale. You could look at our 2 shows.
Yeah,
where we ripped the offensive line to shreds.
I've been more
We've been hard on Ben. Yeah. But I'm not ready to hit the panic button yet. And this week was the reason why. Now, I'm not ready to say they're a playoff team yet.
Yeah, I think they'll be fighting for that if at best. But
they have done things that they can build off of, and they can look at this game and say, okay, this is what we need to do. This is what works. Now let's stack them. Let's do it again. Let's keep this up.
Yeah.
And if they do that, man, like you were saying at the beginning of the segment, the AFC is wide open right now. There's not many teams. There's a lot of good teams in the AFC, but I don't see anybody maybe other than the Bills, who the Steelers
I like
beat.
the Chargers too. The
Chargers, yeah,
that's gonna be a rough one.
Herbert, that kid's special, man.
He looks like Ben in his prime. If you go back and watch Ben in his prime, that's what he looks like.
Okay, but there's your two teams in the AFC. I think everything else is just a cluster, dude. I think it's just going to be whoever ends up, hot. Honestly, like it's going to be all over the place in the AFC. So the Steelers are right in the thick of it, man. Like it's not like they're buried or anything. It's going to be a fun football season if they play like they did this past Sunday. Yeah. If they give that kind of effort, we're going to have fun. The Steelers may not make the playoffs. We may be seeing a 500 team, but the games will be fun. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap the show up there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe. Check out all the other shows on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. We've got a ton of stuff. As I say every week, there's something for everybody. But again, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening. We will see you next time. It's good to see some hockey. It's good to see Steelers win.
Yes.
And hey, 2 wins leading up to our show this week. I'll take it, man.
Yes.
Something to be happy about. So again, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.